Hello, Abnormal Investigations. Good to talk to y'all again. A lot of you asked me if I've got to see Hunter. I was supposed to see him today, but unfortunately he is sick again. And I asked for prayers for him, for healing, and for him to be okay and to get over what's making him sick. He's been sick, it seems, a lot on some of the visits I've tried to see him, and it makes me worry about him. But I asked for prayers for him, and I appreciate all the prayers that y'all would put up for him. Also, check out our other channel, guys, called AI Seeking the Truth. It is our backup channel, and I think y'all will find it very exciting. We got some stories we're sharing over there that we normally don't share here, and let me tell you, Kaylee just done one that was pretty wild. So go check it out and subscribe over there, guys. We'd love to have you on our backup channel, and let's get into today's encounter. Mike, I noticed that you do a lot of fishing, and I watch your show a lot and have been here almost since the beginning. I have an encounter I'd like to share with you. It's about a fishing trip I had, and I've wondered if you've had one similar. I clocked out of work on Friday evening. I couldn't wait to trade in my keyboard for a fishing rod and some fresh air. I hopped in my truck and I headed to pick up my buddy, Alex, who was just as eager as I was to escape the city for a weekend. We loaded up our gear and we hit the road, the excitement building as we left the traffic and the skyscrapers behind. Our destination was a secluded campsite nestled near the tranquil lake, surrounded by the towering trees and the sounds of nature. As we arrived, the sun began to set, casting a warm orange glow over our little slice of paradise. We quickly set up our camp, built a roaring fire, and cracked open a couple of cold beers to toast the start of our adventure. The next 2 days were a blur of fishing, hiking, laughter. We reeled in some impressive catches, exploring hidden waterfalls, and even spotted a few deer grazing in the nearby woods. As we sat around the campfire on our final night, swapping stories and gazing up at the star-filled sky, I realized this was exactly what I needed. A chance to unplug, a chance to recharge and connect with nature and with a good friend. The weekend flew by, all too fast, but the memories we made will last a lifetime. And as we packed up our gear and headed back to reality, I knew that I'd be counting down the days until our next adventure. But I got to thinking, man, it's all going so well, let's stay another night. Let's go and get some more firewood and spend another night out here together. You know, what's one more night? He agreed, Alex said. Everything's been going so smooth. I think we should stay too. So we went out to grab some extra firewood to stoke the fire and stay that extra night. Our wives were okay with it and understood, and of course we had accumulated a lot of work at work, in which had given us hours that we were able to take off work. As we were getting the wood, we heard something. We froze, our arms loaded with firewood, and looked at each other with a mix of curiosity and caution. There was a whistle. The whistling sound was loud and clear, but it didn't sound like any bird or any normal animal that we knew. It almost sounded human. What was that? Alex whispered, and his eyes scanning the tree line. I shook my head. My heart was beating a little faster. No idea, but it's definitely not a bird. We stood there for a moment, waiting to see if the sound would come again. And then, just as we were about to brush it off as a stray animal, we heard it once more. A low, mournful whistle that sent shivers down our spines. Without a word, we dropped our firewood and began to move cautiously toward the sound, our sense of high alert as we approached the trees. The whistling started to grow louder, and we could tell that whatever was making the noise was moving also. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, tall and imposing, with eyes that seemed to gleam in the fading light. We stopped dead in our tracks, our hearts pounding in unison, and wondered if we were in for a whole lot more adventure than what we had bargained for. We stood there for a few moments, trying to get a better look at the figure, but it was too far away. and the light was fading very fast in the woods. As you know, Mike, it gets darker in the woods a lot faster than it does if you're in the open. We exchanged skeptical glances, and without a word, we both thought the same thing. It's just another camper, probably lost or looking for firewood like we are. We shrugged it off, grabbed our firewood, and headed back to our campsite, chalking up the strange encounter to the power and suggestion of the eerie atmosphere of the woods. We built our fire, cooked our dinner, and settled in for a peaceful night under the stars once again. But as we sat there, swapping stories and enjoying each other's company, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting to see a tall figure lurking just beyond the ring of the light cast by our fire. Alex noticed my unease and raised an eyebrow. "Dude, what's wrong? You're jumpy as a cat." I hesitated, feeling a little silly. "I don't know, man. I just feel like we're not alone out here," I said. Alex chuckled. "You're just spooked because of that weird whistling noise. It's probably just some guy trying to find his way back to his campsite and saw us out here and wanted to mess with us." I nodded, trying to convince myself that he was right. But the feeling persisted, and I couldn't shake the sense that we were being stalked by something or someone that didn't want us there. We quickly realized that our mysterious visitor was not just a lost camper, but someone or something that was intentionally trying to get our attention. The whistling grew louder and more insistent, and the rocks started hitting our tents with increasing frequency. "What the hell?" Alex yelled, his voice muffled by the fabric of his tent. "Who is this guy?" I peeked out of my tent, trying to get a glimpse of our Terminator. "What is that in the darkness?" But there was nothing. I couldn't see anything. It was impenetrable. The only sound was the whistling, which had grown to a deafening pitch, and a steady patter of rocks just hitting our gear. I ducked back into my tent, my heart racing. This was no longer funny. Whoever was out there was clearly trying to intimidate us, and I was starting to get a little worried. I said, "Alex, we need to get out of here," I whispered urgently. "This guy is not messing around." But before we could even start packing up our gear, the whistling stopped and the rocks ceased hitting our tents. The sudden silence was even more unsettling than the noise had been. We waited, frozen, expecting something to happen next, but the darkness remained still and quiet, as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what would we do next. My heart was racing as I slowly peeked out of my tent once more, my eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. But then we heard heavy breathing. The heavy breathing was like nothing I'd ever heard before. It was deep, guttural, and it seemed to be vibrating through the air itself. Alex's voice was barely audible, his words trembling with fear. "Oh my God, what is this? It sounds like a bear or something." I shook my head. My grip on my .357 Magnum was tightening. "That's no bear," I whispered back. "Whatever it is standing right outside our campsite." The breathing, it grew louder, more labored, and I could feel the ground vibrating beneath my feet. Suddenly, a pair of eyes that were sparkling from the fire materialized in the darkness, fixed on us, and we could tell, yep, it was staring at us. I raised my gun, my hand shaking slightly as I tried to steady my aim. Alex's voice was a barely audible whisper. "Oh man, oh man, oh man," he yelled. The eyes drew closer, and I could see the outline of this massive, shadowy form looming over our campsite. I knew at that moment that we were in grave danger, and whatever was out there was very far from human. The sound of the gunshot, when I fired it into the air, it echoed through the forest and the creature, well, it took off as fast as it could after I made the shot. Its massive body was crashing through the underbrush with incredible speed and power. The noise was deafening. The snapping of the branches, the crunching of the leaves, and the splintering of the wood. This thing was hauling ass away from us. Alex and I stared at each other in shock, our hearts racing with fear. We knew we had to get out of there fast. We quickly packed up our gear and started running, not stopping until we were back at the safety of our truck. As we drove away from the campsite, we couldn't even shake the feeling that we had just encountered something truly sinister and evil. We didn't speak much on the way back, our minds reeling the questions: what was that? What was that? What the hell was that? Why did it attack our campsite, and what would it have happened if I hadn't fired my gun into the air? We never went back to those woods again, and we have found a new place to camp, and we've never spoke of that night to anyone. But the memory of those glowing eyes and the sound of that creature's rampage through the forest, well, it stayed with me till this day, Mike. Chilling reminder of the terrors that lurk in the darkest corners of the wilderness. And when I see you out there by that lake, I know what exists by those waterways. They use them, I believe, for travel, for hunting, for water, for survival, and, well, Mike, when you're down there, you're in their neighborhood. And as I looked back, and as I reflected on that terrifying encounter, seeing you go down and do your boots on the ground as you do alone, I couldn't imagine running into the things that I've seen alone. I pray for you every time you're out, and I am afraid for you at times because I know where you're at is very dangerous. I couldn't shake the feeling that that creature might have been watching us the whole time also. Its eyes fixed on us like a predator sizing up its prey. The thought sent a chill down my spine. What if it had been stalking us since we arrived at the campsite, biding its time, studying our movements, and waiting for the perfect moment? Doing exactly what you said, Mike, waiting for one of us to be an opportunity to strike. The uncertainty and the fear that came with being in the presence of something so powerful and so unpredictable was overwhelming. It was a humbling experience that reminded me of my place in the natural world and the importance of respecting the land and its inhabitants. I was grateful that Alex and I had made it out safely, but the memory of that night lingered. It made me sick to my stomach, Mike. It made me so sick. I didn't know what to do. I was so glad that we were able to escape that forest that night. The shadows and the wilderness, and when you hear these things and you hear the walking and the breathing, everything seems to be moving and closing in on you. Some things may be. Other things can just be our mind from what it's doing to us, putting us in that situation and raising our adrenaline and making us so afraid that our eyes, our mind, our heart, our body starts playing tricks on us, and then we don't know who the creature is or where he's coming from because we don't even know, and then the next thing you know, it's right in front of you. Mike, I ask that you be careful on your endeavors. I wish you did have backup with you when you go out there. It scares the hell out of me seeing you out there alone. Just the fact knowing you're out there in the middle of nowhere. Nobody around. All alone. That alone is scary to me to watch for somebody to just do that at night. Thank you for sharing my encounter. I hope you remain safe. This is my favorite channel, always has been, and I will always support you and Hunter and your family. Thank you for sharing my story. You're very welcome. Very interesting story, and I do believe what you're saying is when we go to the woods, there's always eyes on you. I mean, you don't know what it is, but there is always eyes on you, and, you know, there's a lot of things out there. They know we're there before we ever see them. They can smell, see, and hear us, you know. And I do believe that sometimes they watch us, and I believe that they come from the watchers, and that's just part of what's in their bloodline. Their curiosity is strong. And I believe that's part of the reason they watch us. And I'm going to admit, being down there alone is very scary, and I don't recommend anybody do that. You know, don't do what I do. I choose to do that. I have my reasons that I do that. And it is scary at times. It's unnerving. It's hard to watch all around you when you have your phone in your face doing the live and you're trying to read the comments and you've got lights on you and you're trying to light the area up more than what you normally would so the audience can see where you're at. Because normally I would be a lot dimmer than that. I like to move with the least amount of light possible because I know they can see the light and they will move away from it or stay just outside of it. But a lot of times, with all the lights on and the lights facing you so people can see you, you're actually blinded. I have like a 6 or 8 foot peripheral, vision area that I have, and that makes things different, especially, and dangerous. And when you're by yourself like that, especially, you're counting on being able to read chat, see where you're aiming your camera, your lights, and then trying to watch out for, predators and other dangers in the field, snakes, spiders, holes that you could fall in, anything. So yeah, it does get dangerous going alone, and I don't recommend anybody goes in the woods alone. It's probably not a good idea, but right now it's kind of the only choice I have, so that's what I do. I believe in boots on the ground, and I believe that you cannot be a good investigator if you're not out getting your hands dirty. Um, I believe it's important to be involved physically as much as mentally in the studying. I mean, do you want a heart doctor to come up to you and say, I read 500 books on how to do a bypass, so you should be fine? Or do you want a doctor to come up to you and say, I've read 500 books on how to do the bypass, but also I've done thousands of bypasses and you're going to be fine? I'm going to take the second doctor. The first doctor's only read about it. The other one's hands-on. So that's kind of my feeling about how I do this. Guys, I want to thank you so much for your support on this channel and for AI Seeking the Truth. Go check it out. Kaylee put out an awesome video over there. I think y'all are going to really, really enjoy it. I will try to put the link in Facebook. Well, I'll put the link in Facebook, and I'll also put it under the community tab on the YouTube channel for those of you who don't have Facebook. Go check it out, subscribe, support her over there. I think you're really going to enjoy the emails that are coming in that we haven't used here. Some of them, I'm going to admit, is scary as hell. Guys, I want to thank you all for the prayers also for Hunter. That means a lot to me. I'm really worried about him right now, and my prayers are with him also. And Hunter, I love you so very much. I can't wait to see you, buddy. We got a lot of things to do in this life. Thank you all so much. Good night.